kind of part 2. All right, so that should be good. So I guess let's just to kind of give you a recap. So here's the same thing again. I styled it, and then if you click register, it gives you your validation errors. And if I click login, it's gonna break. The reason for that is because we never created a user/login right here, so it's looking for that. We stubbed it in, but we never kind of did that yet. So another thing that's important is we're gonna have to figure out bcrypt. So on the platform, they don't tell you. Well, since this Spring Security section is optional, they don't give you really a version of bcrypt that you should use, because the one that they use with Spring Security is built into Spring Security. So we're going to find our own version of it, and then just use that as a dependency, which is really easy to do. So in fact, let's do that now, because it'll be really easy to set up. So I'm just going to go ahead and Google, bcrypt, and then just type in Java Spring, and then Maven, for example. And it'll give you a Maven package, it'll be in XML, just like our other dependencies, if I do this correctly. Or if we find the right one. My internet may be down again. Bcrypt, I don't know what happened there. Java, Maven. Okay, I'm going to try this again. The internet is being weirdness. It's doing weird things.
No, my Linux is
I don't know.
working fine. My Linux is working fine.
That is weird. Well, I don't know. I think that worked. So let's say Java Spring, Maven, and then bcrypt. No, it works. I don't know what happened there, but... Alright, see, so this is the one. This is not what I want. See, this right here, we're probably going to get it from this website, but this is the one for Spring Security, which we don't want. In fact, I kind of already know the one that we do want. It's none of these. All I remember is has this weird word in it, and it's called mind rot. Here it is. Okay, so this is what we want, and as soon as you go to here, you'll see that, hey, here's a dependency, and it looks very familiar to what ours look like in Maven. So I'm going to copy these few lines, then we're going to just go to our POM.xml. And if, again, this is what I Googled for. I just typed Java Spring, Maven, bcrypt, mind rot, and it was the second thing on here. Or actually the first. And if you go there, then you can just copy this stuff. So I'm going to paste that in our POM.xml over in our dependencies area, anywhere inside of the this tag.
What was the last one?
Yeah, it's very weird. So I'm going to tab this stuff in, and then we'll restart the server, and it should be able to pick up on this dependency, and then we can create, whoa, what does that mean? Okay, we should be good. So it auto-restarted, which is fine. So now what we can do is kind of in our controller, before somebody gets created into our database, we can just check and make sure we hash their password, which should be relatively simple to do. In fact, we could probably say that we want to create an instance of bcrypt and then just have it, hash the password and then save it. So it should be pretty simple. We can go to our controller, for example, somewhere in this post mapping for register, and in our else block. Now, you can do this probably a million ways. I'm going to just really simply just create an instance of bcrypt, and we should have access to this here. I don't know if this will work, so we're going to try it.
Should we change the model to save the bcrypt instead of the string password?
No, because it's going to give you a hash as a string, so we can just have it save as a string. It should anyways. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to create an instance of bcrypt, because we now have access to this via the package we just grabbed, or that dependency. So I'm going to literally create a bcrypt, all right, and then we're going to say on this object, I don't know how to use it yet, so we're going to see what we can do with this. So there's a couple methods on here it looks like we can use. There's a check password, which is probably for comparing hashes, and this one is hash password, which seems to hash a password. Cool. So that's all we need to know. That's all we care about. So we're going to go with hash password and check password. So here's the arguments it takes.
I think I do.
It takes in a password and a salt as a string. So let's call this function here. We'll say on our bcrypt object, we're going to create or call this hash password. Now the password that we want to pass in here is whatever that person entered in, right? And we know at this point that there's no errors with their password or anything like that, because they typed in at least 2 to 255 characters for their pass. So what we can do is say, hey, on that user that you've given us, go ahead and get their password like this. So we're just ripping out of their form from the newly created user their password. Then for salt, I don't know what we're going to put here yet, so we probably want to say like bcrypt.gen salt, I'm assuming, and then we can put in like a number here. And it should give us back a string here, as you can see, which is what it told us to pass to this hash password function. So let's see what this does. It should be accessed in a static way. Okay, so what that means is since this is a static function, we don't have to create a copy of bcrypt. We can just get rid of that line we just created and say, okay, we'll use the class itself. So it's a static method, so we can just do this. So we kind of just got rid of a line, which is nice. Yeah, so this is probably static as well here, so we can just do this. All right, now we need a place to store this. So why don't we just do this? Let's just make this, we can separate this out or do it all in one line. Let's just separate it so it doesn't look really gross. Let's just call this PW. All right, so after we've done this, we've gotten a hash back from bcrypt. So we've just hashed this person's password. Now all we have to do is set their password to this new hashed version before they get saved here. Otherwise, it's not going to work out for us. So all we have to do is with this, we can say user. We already know we have get password. This time we want to say set your password to PW, or our hashed password. And simple as that, I'm pretty sure we're done. If you want to make this all in one line, just do this and just slam it into the set password. And now we have a one-liner. You can do that too. Which is probably gross, so if you don't want to do that, that's understandable. Either way, that should work. So pretty straightforward bcrypt stuff. We really didn't have to do much for that. So why don't we go ahead and create another user, and then we're going to check some other stuff before we save a person to make sure they don't exist in our database already. Because we don't want duplicate users, so we'll take that into account as well after we figure this out. So really quick, I'm going to just... why don't we delete this person from our database? Delete from users where ID equals 1. All right, so now we have no users, and we're going to just create a new user. I just deleted them from our DB real quick. All right, so let's see if this actually works. Let's go back over here, close that out, and just make a new person. For some reason, I tend to go with Bob Saget for a lot of these. I don't know why, but we're going to use him. So test 1, 2, 3, 4. Still haven't changed those to type equals password. If someone's looking over your shoulder, then you've just given that away. Let's register. Okay, so I broke something. It tells us there was a problem with bcrypt. So let's look at our terminal. It should tell something here. Class not found. I thought I imported that.
That's what mine is saying. Mine is
What?
saying cannot resolve bcrypt.
That's weirdness because we have this imported here and should be able to pick up. Okay, this usually works.
It's in your pom.xml.
Yeah.
Is it in the right tag in your pom.xml?
Yeah, it's in our dependencies. Anywhere within our dependencies section, we can just chuck this in there. It's supposed to work. But what's weird is it lets us use it, and it doesn't give us errors with these method calls. So that's bizarre.
That is quite bizarre.
And it only happens when we post. So something strange is happening here. I don't know what yet, or why that's happening. Cool, I don't know why that's happening. Maybe we can...
Class not found exception.
org mindrot gbcrypt bcrypt. Maybe we can do this. We could try to do something, a little weirder that might work, but there's no guarantees. Let's try this. We're gonna say go ahead and make a copy of bcrypt on our class. This probably won't work, but we're gonna try it anyway. And then in our constructor up here, when somebody creates an instance of our controller, let's try to create that instance here. Because we're using dependency injection, this might work. But again, these methods, it even told us that we need these. These have to be, static methods. So you can't really call these. But we're going to try this. So we created a copy of bcrypt on the class, and then we did that there to assign it via dependency injection. Now over here, let's try to do this. This might not work. But instead of doing capital bcrypt, we can now use the instance we have in the class. So we're going to try this. And it doesn't like that, as you can see. So this might not work.
Yeah, it's saying it should be accessed in a static way.
I know.
But
usually you have to...
addresses.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
So when Spring Tool
Doesn't work.
Suite is evaluating the references and Like when your Java compiler is evaluating the references, how is it possible that one of them thinks that it exists and the other one thinks that it doesn't exist?
I don't know. That's a great question. But I mean, it's right here, as you can see. I don't know. I have an idea. How about this? Let's leave what we have. I'm going to comment this, actually. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to print out. Now, this will be kind of useful, but maybe not. You don't have to, don't copy this, because I'm just testing this. I'm going to print out the reference to this class bcrypt. Just a whole reference and see if it works. I don't know if it'll let us do that.
Result from variables.
Yeah. Let's try this. Let's get rid of this import and then re-import it, because something weird is happening. Yeah, see, I want to be able to just print the whole class to see if it exists, but I don't think it likes that. We could do... bcrypt dot...
I mean, it's working on my machine.
Oh, does it? Your guys' has worked? What the heck?
Mine's called JBcrypt. Is that different?
No, that's from the right package. It's just...
What I did,
A J in the front, no.
I just added from the dependencies, like go and look for it.
Oh, you mean like not pasting it here?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you just type like mindrot or something?
So yeah.
Let's try it your way.
What if you try restarting Spring Tool Suite?
Yeah, that's a good point. Hang on. Let's bring back what we had. Get rid of this. Uncomment. Okay, so it doesn't like it, but let's just save and close this. Let's get rid of it from our POM XML, and then we'll do it as it is said. So let's go to add, and then I'll type blank bcrypt, right?
No, it's mindrot.
Just type mindrot. Let's see. Okay, so it finds it here. For some reason, I don't know why it's making us do it here. Usually you can just throw it into the POM XML and it's fine.
Yeah,
So let's see if it compiles.
IntelliJ, and I just pasted it in.
Alright, it seemed to work fine.
Yeah.
It compiles now, so thanks. That's weirdness.
How
So
do you get that list of possible dependencies?
you have to actually go to Window, Preferences, and then go to Maven over here, and then just
Add
click it.
dependency?
Yeah, so, well, no. Go to Preferences and then click Maven, and then just make sure all the things that say download are checked, like these. And that way it'll populate your dependency list, so you can type things into that search bar and it finds them. Otherwise, it's not going to know where to find things. So just make sure you do that, and then you should be good. And then you can click Apply and Close. I'm not going to do that because it takes a long time. And it'll show you if you do that down here in the bottom right. It'll just load for like a really long time. So,
You see the window and then
yeah, Window, Preferences, and then Maven.
So in theory, if you were to edit the XML or edit the pom.xml and then close Spring Tool Suite and then reopen it,
It might work, but it's supposed to pick things up automatically. Like that's why we have DevTools, so it can like import dependencies.
Right.
see all the downloads will be through.
Yeah, click all of those, and you can click update on startup, but that's going to take a long time. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, so that's all you need. So let's go ahead and try to post again to register or whatever we had. Let's try to make a new person and see if this works. Bob@gmail. And then we'll make sure our password confirmations match and stuff like that too, if this happens to work. And it doesn't. I don't know why it's not working. That's not cool. Is your guys' saving?
Yeah, I've been to it like MySQL code function.
Really? Okay. So I don't know why mine's not picking it up, but I'm just going to get rid of this for a second. So this should be working. I'm not sure why it's not, but I mean, it doesn't give us errors when we're calling those methods. But let's just keep moving on, and then if somebody figures that out later, then just let me know and we'll change it. But for now, let's just keep moving forward because we still have like a lot of checks to make, check for. Like, does this person already exist in our database? We need to know that before they register. So what we can do here is let's comment out those 2 lines, and then somewhere in here, how would I be able to find out if someone exists in our database? We actually created a repo method for it, and a service method.
Find by email.
Yes, so we can be like, hey, service, we know we created this email here, or find by email here, but we can also use the one Skylar made if you want, find by email and password. It's more explicit. Either way, it doesn't matter. what we're going to do here is say on your user, pull out the email that they typed in, or the email, not the password. And we're going to get a user back from this. And why don't we call this user, like, I don't know, exists. So we could say of type user, we're going to say exists, or whatever you want, equals, and then find this person by their email, whoever typed this in. Then we can be like, hey, if exists, then we know that this person already is in our database, so you can't use the same username. Right? So we can be like, if exists is not null, then you might say, okay, well, we're not going to let you do that. So you might say, in fact, a good way to do this is to kind of flash our own errors. Just a really simple way is just to grab up here in our register method, just say model. And we're going to import this just to make our own really, really quick error. And we're going to say, hey, if you're not in here, then we're going to say on our model object, just say add attribute. We're going to add a string called like, maybe user error. And then we can add a value here that's just a custom string. So we're just going to throw a string onto the page that says, hey, if this string ends up showing up on the page, then we know this person already exists. So you might say, a user with this email already exists. Maybe, that could work. Right, so if that happens, then we'll do this, and then we'll probably also want to re-render the page again. So we don't want to redirect because it's going to get rid of our model attribute. Alternatively, you could shove it into session, redirect, and then that would be fine.
Attributes.
Yeah, you can use redirect attributes and have them redirect to register, but this is a quick and dirty kind of way to do it we want, just to see if it works. And we can change it later if you really want to. So let's re-render register, and we'll check on our page later to see if that key exists that we created that's called user error. Yes.
So, like you have find by email and then user that get email, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't it work like just with sending an email? Just say email?
What do you mean? Oh, user.email?
No, just the email.
What do you mean, like putting the word user here? Or email?
Email.
Just putting user here?
Send an email in to the
Yeah.
user.
Well, we
How
don't
does it
have
work?
that because we need to grab that from the whatever this person typed in. I mean, alternatively, you could do this. String email equals user.get
Oh,
email.
No, that,
You could do this and then put email here.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. So now we hopefully will get someone back from here, and if we do, then we know that somebody can't use that email because we got a value back. If if exists is null, nobody with that ID exists, or email or whatever. So if they don't exist, if they do, then we'll tell them, sorry, you can't have this username. Otherwise, we're going to call the create method, and in this case, we'll just redirect you. So we can bring this redirect up here if we want. Doesn't really matter. So that should be it for taking care of duplicate entries. So we should never have a duplicate user. And then you might also say, hey, if nobody, if you were doing like the admin dashboard assignment, you might say, hey, get all the users, and if the size of the amount of users in our database is 0, then make this person an admin. So like the first person that registers could be an admin. So what other checks what might we want to check here? We've found out that if there's a duplicate, you can't create a user. And we should have had hashing work. This should work for everyone. I don't know why this didn't work for us, but that should be working. Is there anything else you guys would want to check for, like when someone registers? I think that's mostly all we need, right? Like no duplicates, and we should hash your password. I feel like there's something else. Maybe not.
Confirm the second
Yeah,
one.
thank you. Yes, so we need to make sure your password's confirm is matching to whatever you typed in. So we can make that kind of our last sort of check here, maybe. We can just kind of nest an if somewhere in here. Honestly, it's probably a better idea. Before we make a database call, we shouldn't touch our database unless we know what you typed in is, legit. So maybe we should do this before the fact that we query. So somewhere in here we could say, we can do an if here and then an else. You might say something like, well, if the users dot get password and then dot equals, and then you might say user dot get confirm, right? And then you can just negate this whole thing. So if it's not a match, then do something about it here. If it is a match, then let them carry on. right? So that should do what we want, I believe. So if it's not a match, otherwise if it is a match, we're gonna copy all this, and shove it in the else. That could do what we want. So if it's not a match, let's tell them about their error right here, right? So if you typed in your password wrong with the thing that was right above it, like in those boxes, then that's a problem. So we'll go ahead and say, like, you know, let's re-render the page again. And then just, again, we have our model attribute here, and we could just copy this line, in fact. Shove it there. And we can use the same key if you want, but we probably shouldn't because they're different. And because this error might happen. Actually, no, it won't. We can leave that. And we can just say, like, passwords must match. Password confirmation must match. Right, so that should be okay. Oops. Yeah, see, sometimes DevTool's annoying. It just spams you. So does this part kind of make sense to you guys, where we're kind of checking for all these custom validating this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Because we're just saying, hey, get this user's password that we're validating right here, and see if the string of this password equals whatever they typed into the confirm field. If they don't match, we know they typed it in wrong. Otherwise, we're going to query our database. And it was good that we put this up here because, again, like, we shouldn't touch our database unless we know we have to. So we get this if out of the way, and then we can deal with the database here. So that should do it, aside from bcrypt not working. Right, so let's refresh and make sure that these are going to work out for us. But really quickly, on our JSP, we should go over there and make sure we're showing this error that we kind of made the custom. So what we'll do is maybe somewhere in this region over here, we should have that C library. So I'm going to go look for that. It should be on the platform somewhere because we're going to need that. I'm going to do an if, and then just say if that key user error exists, show us the error that they made. Otherwise, don't do anything.
Yeah, it's percent at tag lib, percent at tag lib, prefix equals C.
Okay, and then
URI equals http://java.sun.com
okay,
/JSP/JSTL/colon.
Okay. Is it HTTPS by any chance? No S.
I don't really. Well, in my copy of the file, which I know works, it is HTTP.
Okay, cool. That should be good. Thanks, man. That's great.
Is that a security vulnerability?
If it's not S, probably.
Like if.
Maybe. I'm
I
not
mean,
sure.
If somebody is, a malicious attacker is on the network and serving you malicious Java that, is breaking into your web application and stealing your user's passwords.
That could pose as a threat, yes.
Like that would be a fun project, I think.
Okay, I don't think it's picking mine up. We're going to try it anyway.
What
So,
if you try restarting Spring Tool Suite?
that could be the issue.
In the copy of my one that I know works, it's http://java.sun.com
Okay,
/JSP/JSTL/colon.
okay, we got it. I got rid of the www. Maybe that was it. I think I have the syntax wrong. See if test equals yada yada.
It's not giving you the other one, so it looks good.
Why is that red? Oh, that's red because I didn't put a condition in here. So all we need to put in here is that custom error we made. So we can say if user error showed up, then inside of this we can render stuff. So
Wait, do you not need to test if it's null? You can just use it directly?
it should be a null check, yeah. So if it's not null, then we can put in here like just a p tag. We'll just grab one of these, and I'm going to paste it in there, and then we're going to just say, instead of whatever this form errors is, just make a p tag. And you guys may have seen the platform, they have you use the C:\out thing a lot. You don't really need to. You can just directly use $ curly braces and then just shove a variable in there. So that should work out. We're going to test it real quick. So we're just saying if the thing is not null, then it's probably an error. So go ahead and show it to that person. Make a p tag and show it. Even though that's red, it should be fine. So we'll refresh really quick just to test, and I'll click register. That was actually legit. I don't know why I did that. So let's try to just put some random stuff in here and make sure these are different. Didn't do anything. It's supposed to. Okay then. Let's make sure that that works real quick before we move on. So, why didn't that work? If they're not equal, put this on the page, re-render register. Okay. Let's do a print real quick right here and just say, you know, passwords don't match. Just so we can see if this portion's running, because it should be running. I don't know why it wouldn't be. So, let's try that again. You know, let's just put some random stuff in here and make sure these don't match. Click register. And it's not running passwords don't match for some weird reason. So maybe I typed this in wrong. I don't think this is running.
Oh, response has errors.
Oh yeah, that's true. Alright. So then let's just fill this out. And then now we'll try this. Okay, good call. So our errors do work. It does say, hey, you typed this in wrong. We just had other blank fields. So that's cool. And then why don't we just make also a test user, and let's go with bob@gmail.com again and see if it tells us, hey, this person already exists. You know, we can just spam this, you know, bob@gmail.com. So it should tell us, you know, this person exists if we did it right. A user with this email already exists. Cool. So we have a pretty good register working. Now all we have to do is figure out login. It would have been nice to get bcrypt to work. If it doesn't work for you later, then, well, we can still try to figure it out, but we still have the login to work on, and bcrypt's easy to set up once we figure that out. So,
Yeah, I got it
Yeah.
to work on my machine, the decrypt.
see, I don't know why mine doesn't. It's weird.
Like, it might have been like the fact that your network was down for a minute.
That's kind of what I thought.
Like, it maybe like cached partially. Maybe if you run maven clean on your directory.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah, let's bring back that import, and then I'll try to reset it. See, like, it's not picking it up. Oh, it's just because it's unused. So let's bring this back. I'm going to save this and then just restart all of Spring Tool Suite, actually. Because maybe that's my problem. I don't know. Where is Spring Tool Suite? Here it is. Maybe it'll pick it up now. We'll hope for the best.
I mean,
Do you know why my controller doesn't recognize model before add attribute?
No. That depends on... I mean, did it ask you to import it, or does it not want it?
Resolved, create a local variable or a field or a parameter.
Really?
Is your syntax right?
You have model, where's models?
Let's see if this will run.
You don't have models in
yeah, it needs to be in your function parameter.
Does it go in place of user or
No,
something?
it's just a, at the very end, comma, uppercase model,
Behind,
space model.
behind binary result.
Yeah, sure.
Let's create a test user. Test.
It's also complaining about it because you haven't imported it.
What? Well, it's working now, but I got a weird thing happening here. It hashed my password and then it slammed it into the...
That's impressive. That definitely looks like bcrypt is working.
Yeah, okay, so just a restart was necessary, but something strange is happening. I don't know what it is.
So take a look at your code.
I think... So it's running passwords don't match, but it's like... Oh, it's because I'm hashing it before the fact, so... Let's grab this hash and put it below this password check, and then we'll be fine. Let's put it there, and now we're good. So we just needed to reorganize that, but it is working now, which is great.
Yeah.
Where did you put it? Sorry.
So we moved those two lines because I was hashing it and then comparing the passwords, which I didn't realize till now. So yeah, let's put it. I just moved them in the else block here. That should help us out. All right, so I'm going to save this and we'll try one more time, and then we should be good.
Hey, a minute ago when you ran it, it was warning you about illegal reflection. And
Oh, yeah.
just now, it's not warning you about illegal reflection.
Maybe it had something weird to do with bcrypt. You're probably right.
Maybe.
So let's register test. All right, things are going good. We've got a hashed password.
Hey.
Yes, okay, so we're good. Test is there, and if we try to create test again, let's just do it for a second. Test@test.com. Oh my god. My validations are too strong. A user with this email already exists. Cool.
But then
So,
it gives you back
it gives you back the hash, which might not be ideal. But,
It's not
Fix that.
really a security problem.
Not
It's
really.
just a hash.
yeah.
But it is like user unfriendly.
Right. It's not appealing to
us.
someone.
Doesn't know what they're doing.
They're like, what is happening here? The site must be severely flawed. All right, so now we got our register working. We can kind of move on to our login now. So again, it's the same idea. We're going to check to see if somebody exists in our database, validate your inputs before that, and then compare your passwords. So we'll dehash them and compare. So all we really need to do is, now that we're done with register, let's create a post to whatever we called it before, which was probably just /login. So we're going to post to login. The reason I know it's that is because I'm pretty sure on our template over here, yeah, see we have a post to /login. So we'll call this /login.
And the controller prefix is users, right?
Correct. That's why I have it as just /login. Yep. All right, so let's call this public string login. This will be the actual login. So processing things. So what we're going to do here is we're not going to like do an @valid model attribute, all that stuff. Because we used a normal form, we're going to need what?
Parameters.
Yeah, so what do we normally put here? It's like a weird, looks like something like this.
Request param.
Yeah, so request param. We're going to need 2 of these, right? Because for each input, you want to use one of these, right? All we have is an email and a password. So I'll make this one, doesn't matter what order. And we want to get these back as strings, right? So we're going to say when you log in, give me whatever's in that input. Right, so let's import this stuff, get that out of the way. I don't know why that didn't import. Let's try that again. Please import. There we go. And then do the same thing. So I'm going to copy this whole thing and then just paste it over there. And then we'll change this to just password. And then that's basically it. So again, it's different than our register simply because we're not using a form for this. We're pulling out things manually via here, these inputs, right? We're pulling out email and password in this method, right? And you can verify that by looking at this. So we're hitting login and we're pulling out these 2 attributes. So now all we got to do is validate your stuff. For now, let's just go ahead and return a redirect to the middle of nowhere, just so it stops erroring. Okay, so what do you think my steps should be for when a person logs in? What should I check for? Because we're going to probably have to do a couple of manual validations with like the 2 inputs we have, because we don't have anything to validate against besides these 2 strings.
We didn't do any side stuff for the back.
No, because these are manual just strings. We're going to have to do some manual checks here. There's probably better ways around it.
I think you would just do, if it's empty as one check.
Yeah.
Besides that, either matches or doesn't match an email in the system.
I like it. Cool. That sounds like a plan. So then if that's the case, let's go ahead and grab like our model just to throw some custom errors in here that we're going to use. Now in the platform, they'll show you later on custom validations, like you have a whole class for it, or you could just throw a couple ifs in a controller and do it yourself. So we're going to go with that approach, but I will show you guys custom validations like tomorrow in the Belfield. So again, we'll do what Jim just said. Say, hey, if you typed in an email and the length of that email, right? So we could say email.length. If email.length is less than 1, we know you didn't put anything in there. So we can do really quickly, just say like, return. And we're going to return, what page are we going to be on at this point? I suppose the same one, so register. Then we'll just make a model attribute. Now you can say, call this whatever you want, email error. And then this can be, you need to have at least blah blah characters. Email must be between, what did we make the other one? Like 2 and 255 characters? Something like that.
But it's a login request though. Like if the email is between, if it's 1 character or 0 characters, then we shouldn't find anything when we query the database for it.
Yes, this is true. We can also just be like invalid credentials. You don't want to give too much away. Just tell them, hey, sorry, we don't know what you're talking about, if you do that. And again, we could do the same thing for like, if they happen to do the same for their password. If password's length is less than 1, then you can say like password error.
Should we say less than 8?
Yeah, that's a good call.
Oh yeah, right, because we don't want to have to touch our database if we don't have to.
Yeah, so we're going to do all this stuff, get this out of the way, then we can start messing with like, user exists equals whatever kind of stuff right here. So we're going to get this basic thing, these basic validations out of the way, so then we can kind of filter out what people are doing. So now, how can I get and figure out if a person exists by the email somebody put in here, this email here?
I think can we just do email and password all in one step?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
So
Yes, we
fix
can.
both things at once. But if there wasn't a tied together query, you couldn't do that.
Correct.
But we made one, so
Right, exactly. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to need to hash their password, whatever this password is, first before we send it off.
that's about it.
Yeah. So we can be like string pw or hash equals. So we're going to rehash whatever you've given us. So we can be like bcrypt. Actually, this isn't going to work yet. I don't think we can do it all in one step because we're going to need to hash your password first. Let's see.
Wouldn't it just send it back along with the email and check both? And if they're both true, it would come back true. If one's not true, it would come back false.
Yeah, but here's the problem. When I use check password, I need to know the password that's in our database and the one that they typed in. So the one they typed in,
Well, we're just hashing it, so we just shoot the hash.
Mm.
It's better, right?
yeah. All right, so I mean we can do this one of two ways.
Or do you have to put in the other password into the decrypt?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we have to put it into bcrypt first. So why don't we just do this?
By email.
Yeah, we'll just do a normal find by email and say go ahead and look up this person by their email. The reason we're doing that is so we can find out what their password is. But first of all, before we even bother checking that, we need to know if that person exists that they're trying to log into, right? So we can say, hey, what if that person doesn't even exist? And you typed in blah@blah.com. Well, then we don't know if that person exists, so let's check this too.
If you is not null.
Yeah, so if it is null, then this person doesn't exist in the first place, so we'll just make a custom error again, and we can kind of grab these two lines and just be like, hey, this person doesn't really exist, then we'll just say, just general, maybe just error. And then we can say, maybe just login error, that's fine. And we'll just, again, put like invalid credentials. You could put in like a person with his email doesn't exist or whatever, but let's just leave it kind of vague. So if this person does exist, we finally have access to this user. Or you call it with this, whatever you want. We can just say you. So if this person exists by that email, how can I check that person's email that's on file, the hashed version, hopefully, and dehash it with what this person's typed in up here? It should be a method something like,
bcrypt.checkpw.
yeah, so we could say plain text. It takes two things, the one that's plain text and then the hash. So we know that our plain text one is literally just password, right? So that's what this person typed in up here, this here. And now we're going to say, okay, well, we know we ripped that out of your form. We're going to shove that into this function, and we're also going to shove in what here? User dot. Yeah, so this should be user dot get password, right? So we can say, well, this is the one that we know that's on file by this person we just found, which should be the valid hash, right? So this is the hash, this is the non-hash, what you typed in. So we're going to compare these two. Now,
that'll return true or false.
I think it'll return a Boolean. Yeah, see right here? We can be like, you could just have this as an if like this, but that's kind of gross. Maybe you do want to do this and then just have an if like that. That could work, or you can just store it. I think that's kind of gnarly, so maybe we can, say Boolean, exists again. Sure, why not? Equals.
And if you're going to return in the previous if block, you probably don't need the else.
Yeah, you don't need to have it there if you don't want. Alright, so let's get rid of this. Hold on, I broke something. I missed a pair of parentheses right there. Alright, so now all we need to do is say, hey, if that person exists, or I guess that maybe not call it exists, but call it matches or something. So if your password matches, then that's great. We'll let you log in. We'll validate you, put you in session, and that kind of stuff. So we can mess with session at this point too now, and then redirect them to a dashboard. And then we'll basically be done. So alternatively, after that, you guys can figure out a way if you want to make it so that when someone registers, they're automatically put into session and you take them to a dash. I'll leave that up to you guys. We're going to just worry about when you log in. We'll manage your session, secure your stuff, and take you to the place you need to go, which is probably dashboard. Because we already have a get request, which to our root route takes you to register. Maybe we'll call that dashboard. So if matches, what should I do here? If your password matches what we have on file.
Log you in.
Log you in. So what can I do here though? How do I do that?
Session.
Yes, so we can put this person in session, but let's just say we're going to take you to dashboard only in this one case, because we know you are legit. Otherwise, we can just, again, we're going to probably grab these 2 lines, make a custom error here, and say, your credentials are invalid. Right, so we can do something like this, and you don't have to have as many if-else's. If you want to trim this down, go for it. This is just kind of a rough, rugged, and raw way to make it work. Right, so if you do match, we'll take you to a dashboard, but before we do that, we should probably put you in session by your ID and that kind of stuff. Right, so where should I put session in here, and how should I go about this?
I think it's in your login function. You add a
Yeah, correct.
HTTP session.
Absolutely, so we'll just kind of dependency inject that HTTP session variable and say, let's call it session. Then we'll just grab this, put it up here. We've imported it now. So does anyone have any, before we go any further, does anyone have any questions? Because we are kind of doing a lot of annoyingly manual, string manipulation kind of stuff.
Can you show what you put for sessions again? Oh,
Yes. So first we have request param email. We're pulling out the email,
Yeah.
right, that they put in, their password,
Yeah, password.
model for custom errors and session.
so the model is we want to pass things back.
Correct.
Whether
That's going
it's
to
errors or whether it's information.
correct. Exactly. And then HTTP session is what we're going to just use to store this person by their ID, probably. And then later, if we need to find that person, by their ID, we can just grab it and query for it. I'll show you a good way to do dashboard once we're done this part, which will be pretty straightforward. So if it matches, then we can be like, hey, session, go ahead and set an attribute over here called maybe just user, and we'll set the value of this to guess what?
U.getID or user.getID.
I like it. Yeah, so we'll grab your primary key and say, this is your special ID. Now we know the person who's logged in, right? Because there might be a million users. You might be user 1,000, right? So it's going to store in your session the user's ID. Or, sorry, the server session. It's not a client-based session, sorry. So we've got that person in session. Now what we can do is take you somewhere else, and since we use session in any other routes that require you to be logged in, we can say, hey, does this user variable exist? If it doesn't, we're going to say, hey, go log in. So that's how we're going to do a really good check when we hit our dashboard in just a second. So it's going to force us to log in. Otherwise, all these errors will flag if we didn't do something correct. So are we okay to move on? Does anyone want a recap of what's happening here?
Yeah, I just want to sort of make sure that my understanding is right.
Sure.
When information is put into a session variable, the server generates a random key, and then the browser remembers that key and then passes this random key to the server every time they submit an HTTP request. When the server gets the request, they look at the random key, they look it up in their session dictionary, and the server finds the ID there, or the server doesn't find their ID. But
Correct.
all the client gets is a random key. They're not getting any of this information directly. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're kind of on the right page. Yeah, basically. So it doesn't store anything on the client or get anything from the client because this is a server-side based session where it stores literally all of this information, like that ID right there in session. It stores it on the server in a dictionary, like you said. It is a dictionary, and then it just stores them as keys, and then each request itself is a new session on the server. So it keeps track of requests in a dictionary. And for each request, it's assigning each person's dictionary different keys. So it's all actually on the server. It's not like on the client.
Because I remember in Django, I remember getting some lesson or some signal or some information that said that that session information is encoded in some way, and then pass as a cookie to the client.
Yeah. So generally that is how it works. Like for example, like in Angular or React, you can use things like local storage, which are cookie based, and they do exactly what you just said. Yeah. So it depends on the kind of session it is, because there's different ones. You know,
So
server.
this is just server based.
Yeah, basically. Okay, so from this point, let's move on because we're super close to being done. All we need to do is have, and you can do this in any other route now once you've verified that somebody is logged in, you can check to see if that person is logged in. So as our very last thing, all we need to do is make a dashboard page. So we can say public string, let's just call it dash or dashboard, whatever. This will be our dash page. So if somebody's on this page, then they got here successfully. So the very first thing we're going to do is, all we really need is, maybe we want model. If you want to do some query stuff here, maybe we can have that. And let's go ahead and grab session. So we want to grab your session right away because we're going to see if you are logged in. Even though we know you logged in, if you came from the login route, if somebody randomly goes to /dashboard and they're not logged in, maybe we don't want them to be on our site. Like, you have to log in. In that case, we're going to do that check here. So again, it's going to be kind of the same idea here. You can do something like, what we're going to do is this. We're going to create an ID here. We're going to say long ID, and this is going to be equal to session. Again, this is the same kind of stuff we did with like Ninja Gold, for example. A bunch of null checks. You might say something like, grab this person's ID if you can, and try to turn this into a long. Alright, so we're going to just say, grab this and turn it into a long. And if you fail to do so, then we're not logged in. Does that make sense? So we're kind of getting what we just stored in the other route, in our login route here. We're going to compare that and see if it's null. If it's null, that person's not logged in. So you can just be like, you know, if ID equals null, then we're going to take you away from this page because you're not allowed to be here because you're not logged in. So you can be like return. You can say like a redirect to /users. So we'll force you to go back to register if you're not logged in. And that's literally all you have to do. Now, you might make your own function that does this for each route that you don't want people to be on if they're not logged in. Otherwise, if you are logged in, say, sure, we'll show you this page. We'll say like, maybe just call this dashboard JSP. And that's basically it. So we've just finished it. A couple more things we'll check for and add in are those custom errors we made when you try to register. We'll make sure we flag those, and then we're basically good. Another thing is we don't have this dashboard page yet, so I'm going to create a view for that really quick. So we're going to go new file, JSP. Okay, that was weird. New other JSP. There we go. Let's just call this dashboard. Alright, so we've got this, and then we can just say like welcome, and then maybe their person's ID, and then we'll kind of just wrap it up. So you might say welcome, comma, some person's ID. We can say like, you know, maybe user here. So this will be our dashboard. We're going to leave it as just this. Maybe you'll say user.get first. I think we have an attribute for that. Or just dot first. Alright, so this will be our dashboard. I'm going to close this, and then we're going to come back over here. And one thing you might want to do is, it would be nice to show the person's name, you know, on the page. So a good way to do that is, once we know that you should be able to be logged in, right here in this else, we're going to say, okay, we know you're legit, like you're logged in. So let's pull that person from this session and find their ID from our database. So how do you think I can do that? Sorry? You were onto something.
Get the name.
Yeah, so how do I like grab from our service? Which one of these should I use?
What do you want to know?
Yes, find by ID. Yeah, so we want to grab whatever your session ID was that we had previously from when you logged in, and we want to shove that in here. So we can say, go find that person by their ID that we previously had. So now we have all the information about that person, right? If we want to, you know, put their name on the page or something, now we can say, all right, well, you know, maybe add an attribute called user here, and then just shove that person on the page. And that's basically it. So now over here in our our dashboard, like you can just say like, you know, show this person's user dot first or show this person's user dot email on this dashboard. So I'm going to save this really quick and then it's going to refresh. So there's still kind of a lot of testing we have to do before we know this works, but we'll get there in a second. So on our dashboard, I'm going to just, this should work now. This welcome and then user dot first, because what we did was this over here. We were like, we added an attribute called user on this page. It should be good. Any questions on how we went about like the login or the dashboard? This dashboard method. Questions? Okay, awesome. All right, let's do like really quickly. Let's just make sure that these errors are going to do what we think they are. So when we were on our register page or even login, we had one called user error. We already are showing that on that JSP. We have one called email error, password error, and login error. All right, so we probably should have just named them all the same. Yeah, it would have been nice to just call them all the same. Maybe we'll just do that. Login error. Let's just call these all the same. That'll be way easier. All right, so now we got all those. So all we got to do is go to, register. All right, and then somewhere down along, probably in our login method, we can just do another if and say, hey, if user error exists, then just show those errors. So really simply, I'm going to grab what we had before, which was this test. And instead of user error, we're going to say login error. So if there was an error logging this person in, then we made all those custom errors for a reason. They should show up here. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and test all of this, and hopefully it'll do what we want. And then you guys can ask any questions before we kind of like wrap up. If you want to see some extra stuff or have explanations, then please ask. So let's really quick test this. I'm going to just click login, and it broke. That's cool. So user/login. Let's see why. What happened?
Why would you on a user/user/login?
Okay, so it's actually something on the JSP that's broken. That's not so bad. Binding result, yada yada. Oh, I know exactly why. Well, this is lame. So what's happening is every time we hit this page, it sends us a blank user to the page. And every time. And we're going to have to do that for each one of our custom errors because otherwise it's not going to work. Because it's expecting that, and it's like, hey, user doesn't exist in these cases. So we're going to have to account for that. So this should be pretty simple, actually. Why don't we just do this? We have model here already. What we can do is this. So I kind of want to show you this anyways. This is a good alternative to no. So I mentioned way earlier that way long ago when we first started, we were doing this model attribute user when someone hits our root route for register. This is one way to do that. Another way to do this is to do this. So let's go to login. We already have this model thing here, but what we need to do is this. If there's an error, we're just re-rendering this register page, but we're never sending it a blank user, and that's a problem. That's why it's getting mad at us. So we can do this. Model.add attribute. This is an alternative way to do what we did above, which was the add attribute thing, model attribute. Then we can just say create a new user like this and just shove them on the page by this name. So that's the same, this line here is identical to what happens right here. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that way the page won't get mad at us for not having a reference to this user. So I'm going to paste this on all the spots that we're doing these custom checks, and then we should be good. Like this one needs that there. And this, and there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay, so there's probably way better ways to do this login registration. I was kind of trying to move quick, and it even took a long time. So if stuff is super raw looking, then that's kind of why. but you can probably make it look a lot better. But as long as it works, like that's all that matters. So let's double check this now. We can finally come over here and click login. Whoa. Okay. CSS disappeared. That's an interesting way to see that happen. But it does say invalid credentials, which is great. So when we log in, it says that. Right. Now let's see if our hashing actually works. I don't remember who we have in here. We have this test user at test.com, and we have test 1, 2, 3, 4. If I hit enter, I'm supposed to go to our dashboard page if it worked. And it did work. It went to /dashboard. However, we don't have anything here for some reason. Why? Don't we have a dashboard route? We do. If ID is null, redirect users. Otherwise, do this. Well, the important part is we're hitting dashboard, so we're being put into session. So why don't we run this? Let's do like some prints here, and then we should be good. Let's see which one of these is running. Can't tell. Let's just say get off this page because we know this person's not actually logged in. If this happens, in this case, we can say like, you know, welcome to Dash. And then we're going to just see what our console does in this case, because one of these needs to be happening. It has to be. So I'm going to refresh. I just clicked refresh. So let's see what this terminal says. Neither of those. Well, let's try this. Let's relog in. /users.
Oh, right.
It's super weird that it did that to the CSS. Okay,
Yeah,
so
when you're linking it, you're sending it to /dashboard,
Oh.
/users /dashboard.
good catch, good catch. We don't have a dashboard, we have a user's dashboard. See, sometimes these prefix routes, like, you know, way up here can bite you in the rear end. Good catch.
I'm
That
having
should
a problem where my ID isn't being saved into my session.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hang on. Let's see if that's happening to us here. I think it probably is. Let's try to relog in, and then we'll see if that happens. So we have a test user. Let's see if it dehashes correctly now. User /dashboard. Okay.
Don't you have a handler for user /dashboard?
I don't know what's running. What is running here? We do. Oh, I would never put a route there.
Whoops.
That could be a problem. Good lord. Okay, so now we have a route for that method. So this should make a huge difference.
Totally didn't learn that table.
It happens to everyone. I make those mistakes very often. Alright, I'm going to just attempt to refresh and hopefully we'll... Okay, so it kicked us off, which is actually good. Oops. Oh god. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter. Okay. I think we're having the problem that Skylar's having. So it's not putting our ID into session. It's saying get off this page. That's very nice of it to tell us that.
Get off this page.
Yeah, I have the same code, and it's not able to get, like, I'm getting a null ID on that line.
Okay, so where are we putting this person in session? It's in... Where's login? Okay.
Yeah, you're putting it in if matches, and that should be putting it in session,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't appear to be there when we get to dashboard.
I know. User.getID. What about, like...
Wait a minute, does u.getID, does that a value even have
Maybe it's null.
an ID? If it's actually...
But it can't be null because we know we found this
it came from
person.
the database.
Yeah.
And
Let's log it. Let's see what this does. So let's print this person's user.getID. If that's null,
we'll see.
some user's ID, plus. Alright, let's see what this does. So it should be a match. Let's see if it's even dehashing properly. Maybe it's not. Let's try this again.
Well,
Number 3. Okay, so that's working. So then the problem must be over here on our dashboard method right here. So for some reason this might be null. So it keeps saying get off this page, so that means ID is null.
Why?
Oh, this is wrong. This isn't ID, this is user. That's why.
Where?
I called this, for some reason, user right here.
Oh yeah, I had the same problem.
Alright, so we should be good then. I think that's all it was.
Wait, what is that?
So these two needed...
Dashes.
Yeah, so we had session get attribute ID instead of user. I mean, you could go with ID, I guess, but... I just want to hit our dashboard so bad. Let's hit our dashboard already.
Hey, I got it.
Okay, good. Test at test.com, test 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on our dashboard. Finally, we can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys can do a logout if you want and that kind of stuff. So, alternatively, a good idea is to go to your, now this is optional, I'm just rambling at this point, but if you go to your root route, a good idea is to grab session and say, if somebody managed to hit our root route and they're on the register page, a cheap cop-out way to do a logout is, this is what I usually do for logouts. You just be like session.invalidate. Just, if somebody hits our root route, I'm going to null your session. I don't want to have to set things to, make a logout method specifically for that. In fact, we don't even need a logout now. We can just redirect you, and it'll force you to log out. It's just a really quick way to do it. Like, you don't need an extra function, just invalidate it here. So now if you hit our root
Only
route,
at that one page was the login form anyway, so
Right.
let's go back.
exactly. So now we can check.
Hold on to the information you typed in because you'd have to move its own.
That is true.
I would have re-put that. Oh, yeah.
I guess that's true. But now, the reason I did that is, okay, I just hit this, so our session is clear. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go to test at test, log in. I'm at our dashboard. Now if I go back to root, it just kicked me out. So if I go back to dashboard, it should kick me out, which it did. So we have a great session. It works.
But you're saying you can't refill in what the form said? Like if they fill in the form and there are errors and you go back, it's all empty, right?
Yeah. But if I try to go to, this is the part I was trying to make work, was if I go to dashboard manually and I'm not logged in, it forces you to leave. Like you have to be logged in, which is good. It's pretty secure.
Yeah.
So I'll open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions? Because that was a lot of manual annoying things we had to do. And that was like a lot of info. So, any questions on how we did this stuff?
This is very specific, but how come that one's get is not liking it, but that one is? Are those kind of the same?
Do you need a .get on that one? What happens if you don't put it there?
That probably is fine. I saw them being this looking the exact same as
I didn't copy all of his
Gotcha.
I just copied a bunch of it.
So like that. Why would
Yeah,
that
if it
be?
doesn't turn red, then you should be good.
Why would that one need a get and that one doesn't?
Because I think you made this one by yourself manually. So if you make your own find by ID, then it shouldn't return an option
But do you know how to do
in
it?
your
If
repo.
we make our own.
In your repo, yeah.
I'm gonna cry.
Wherever that may be. But we tried that and it didn't let us.
If
It
we
was like,
make
no, it
our
has to
own
be an
Find
option.
by ID, it's
Yeah.
separate.
Yeah, ever since
Right,
day
so if
one,
you
I
have
just
just-
wanted
that's separate too.
people to
Right, but I don't know why this one
That
works,
stuff
but
better
for
for
some reason
us.
IDs it doesn't like. They have to be
This is the
optional.
optional.
Yeah, try to get rid of the optional, just leave the user. And then it'll break, because we tried that, and I don't know why it didn't work.
So it has the optional it wants to get.
Yeah.
The user doesn't get it.
Alright, so I'm going to stop this recording.